Oh, okay.
Wraithwalker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 13 seconds, so we'll talk about that a bit because we'll do the games that we have played because we got shit to talk about.
Oh.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Almont, Ontario, it's time for This Deathclock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warma Hordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock. Oh my God, it's Wednesday!
It's like we sometimes cast.
Well, so everybody knew that we were going to take some time off. That got a little bit moved around, mainly because, most of you already know this, we're going to have the Wills from Privateer Press on next week. And the way it worked was, we were like just about to do a show, and they were like, can we come on and be on your show in the middle of February? And we're like, we were going to take February off. I guess we'll swap it around. And we took January off instead. So sorry about that to those people who planned their lives around the death clock. I know.
You know, there are a certain amount of people who do that.
There's two guys.
And fortunately, they're all getting help.
Yeah.
So,
oh, you're getting help? That's good.
yeah.
All both of them.
All both of them. You and me. I apologize. Jason is not here to do the show tonight. He unfortunately had to babysit.
Yep.
This is not a change in format. We didn't just fire him.
We've killed Jason.
We were gonna let him Skype in with the babies in his arms, but then I forgot to. I didn't have time to drop off a microphone to him. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go through.
That seems better.
Yeah, it seems good. It seems
we
like
weren't going to say anything.
He'll be on the chat, I'm sure, in about 10 seconds, telling us that we're jerks and things. So before we get started, I need to introduce everybody first, but not last. George Schweitzer, who I don't even have a nickname for you anymore. Semi-Automagic Schweitzer.
What's
Nothing. What?
Nothing.
No, I'm not giving you anything anymore. This is a whole new day.
It's a whole new day.
It's a whole new day.
And I'm going to have to do it all myself.
Yeah, you're going to have to pimp your own self.
I don't pimp myself. That was in the contract. You know that, right?
That is true. That's the guy who's on the other side of me here with the giant beard, if you're watching the live video. And our piped-in guest from the wilds of Ontario, the one and only Matt McSummerWaters.
You're just
Ontario.
Wild.
You're not in Ontario anymore? You moved?
I've been in Montreal for 5 years.
I always forget about that.
You always forget that Montreal's in another country?
It's another country. I don't have a passport anymore, so I can't go over there.
You can't go to Quebec anymore.
Oh, Jesus.
I tried to go to Quebec once. They threw poutine at me.
Matt, currently, now, they haven't announced the WTC teams, or have they?
They have.
They have, and you are on a WTC team this year?
I'm on the third team, yes.
Perfect. This is how out of the loop I am. I've been on the road for far too long.
It's East-West-East this year, right?
East-West-East is how so there was a lot of applicants this year, and we actually had some pretty clear lines drawn over East-West, and then our team, which is all roughly in the same meta.
Awesome.
So they try to put everyone in the same meta kind of together. You got Banky's team, which is the Charles, Banky, Bubba, Chris, and Beauchamp.
Almost the old guard of Canadian WTC.
I can't even begin to list off the West team. I know John Fairs is there, Bryn, but my brain will not remember all the names. And then we have my team, which is Josh Bates, Jeremy McClure, myself, Alex Dunn, and Greg Collinson, otherwise known as Party Foul.
Sweet. Yeah, that's going to be three very strong teams.
I can't wait to see how the teams do this year.
I can't
We have a lot of really good contenders.
I'm looking forward to seeing how Greg handles the WTC with
without writing something gets all of Canada just kicked out.
So all of Canada is mad at
Is that
Greg
part of
again.
it? If he got into the WTC, he's no longer allowed to write blog posts?
I have a really good story about that. We actually, not to go too deep into it this early, but I actually met Greg and Jeremy for the first time at Captain Con this year, which just happened. And we all were at an Olive Garden because those things exist in the States. And I flamed him pretty hard about his writing, and he laughed really hard.
Yeah, that's Greg.
Yep.
That is
Greg,
the correct reaction.
Greg is actually in all fair and honesty, we are pretty good friends with Scott and Greg.
Yeah.
And I mean, Greg and I and Scott have laughed about this plenty. They are completely different in person.
Oh my goodness,
and Greg
they are so different.
Greg just friggin' loves causing shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we do have a lot of news items tonight. The first thing I want to do is there's a couple of announcements, upkeeps for the show. We are changing formats to a certain degree. You're going to see some new fancy graphics, and one of those graphics is a new store sponsor.
Mm-hmm. It's up on the screen right now.
Now, to preface all of this, we don't take changing our sponsors lightly, if that makes sense. We don't just do this it's definitely not for money. It's not like somebody was like, here you go, here's a ton of money. We were finding because...
Can we find somebody to do that?
Yeah, I know, right?
That would be so nice.
You would totally do that. You'd be like,
fuck yeah.
I'm going in a second. I'm sponsored by Toyota now.
I will sell out so fast it will make your head spin.
So what happened was we were finding that the store that we used to play at all the time, the Wizard's Tower, which we still love, they still carry a stock of War Machine. Please go there. If it's your local store, please go and play there. If it's your local store, we will still be going to tournaments there. We will still be playing there. We have zero loss of love for the WT. The problem is we just found that we were going to a store that was a new store that was a bit closer to us. We spent a lot more time there, and we became friends with the owner, and he asked us, he asked us if he could be part of what we did, and the only way we could do that was to wait till our, the thing that we had, the agreement that we had with the WT had come to an end. And so we are now being supported by a lovely store called Out of the Box. They too have a web presence. They carry a crazy full stock of paints, crazy full stock of War Machine, and they can get like new figures in like a day or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
and if you're in anywhere in Ontario, I think or even Quebec as well, I think the flat rate shipping is like $12 or something.
Yeah, so if you're doing a big order and you want everything.
Yeah, and they sell at US MSRP in store.
So if you're a fan of the Wizard's Tower and you're mad at us for dropping the Wizard's Tower, I apologize for that. We have not had a chance to sit down and really talk with Dave, but Dave's been super busy in his defense and in our defense. So things have changed, but things haven't really changed. Nothing other than that. And of course, as part of that, Out of the Box will be supporting MooseCon this year. I believe they're part of some of your events coming up as well. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But that's probably the biggest change. Other than that, everything's still the same. Muse on Minis still are bros for life. And that's about all for that announcement. Other than we will be doing slight changes in format, which the Deathclock will now be pushed to once every 3 weeks, give or take.
Yeah, well, it depends on how many of the other things get up off the ground.
Yeah, and the other two things we're going to be spicing things up with is what we were already doing with the Deathclock is once every couple of weeks was bringing on somebody who painted and we were or did terrain, and we were doing hobbycast. Well, now we're going to make that an official show, part of the Moose Machine sort of umbrella. We're going to be doing a hobby show once every couple of weeks, and we'll be doing the fight nights.
Yeah.
As a more official thing. So there'll be
so instead of the fight nights being filling in when we don't have Deathclock, they'll actually be as one of the rotating shows.
Yep. So and if you're in our area and want to participate in a fight night, please just send us an email or a text, and we'll put your name into a list. Most of those fight nights, of course, will be me and G, or G and Jason, or Bilak, or Aubin, or one of the local guys playing. But if you if you're in the area and you want to play a game, you want to be part of a fight night, you're around on a Wednesday night, just send us your name.
Yep.
We're always happy to have somebody take us on and beat us horribly because we're terrible.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Terrible at this game.
The problem with being in a shit meta is you're the biggest pile of shit.
Well, and in our defense, we already sucked to start with.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't like, we were
Climbing
brought
to the
down.
top is not a...
We might be the ones bringing down the rest of the guys in the Almont area.
Yeah.
I think Chris has maybe said that to us a couple times.
Probably.
Like, you're making me dumber. All right, there is a ton of news because we've been gone for a year. We're going to kind of skim through some of the most important things. Let's start with Minions. Minions have gone live, and suddenly...
They seem to be good.
Yeah. Matt,
did somebody make them good?
Matt, did somebody make Minions good?
Minions are pretty good. They still have a couple really awkward places, and SR 2017 isn't exactly kind to them. I guess their big problem is that their themes are actually really restrictive, even though they don't seem like they are. And this doesn't mean they're a bad faction or anything like that. They're a great faction. They have some really powerful lists. Maylock with Posse is just it's as oppressive as you can get in War Machine. Like
so friggin' brutal.
Yeah.
Like, I've wanted to throw things playing against that.
You're like, you put a heavy in and you're like, I killed a Posse with a fully loaded heavy. Oh, and then he toughed. That was really fun. Other times, like, you have lists like the Jaga Jaga list that costs that just you signs importance every turn. You have a Dracodile with a spray 10 blind, and you remove a lot of games that can, like, they just make it so hard for a lot of armies. They're real good. I play them occasionally. I'd recommend playing them for a lot of people. Yep.
Yeah. So far I've played 2 games into Aubin's Maylock list.
Yep.
Holy, it's just super oppressive. I mean, the nice thing is that Grimkin has answers, a ton of them, and it's still a really uphill battle for him just to deal with what Grimkin can do. But, you know, it's one of those things, like, if he cracked Grimkin, he would just stomp me because I just can't kill that much friggin' meat.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got a couple games in it?
Yeah, I have. I had one game against Chris at a tournament, and then one just at the pub one night. And both of them were very interesting. I played 2 different lists. I played an Old Witch list in one of the times. That did not particularly go well. There's a lot of things that pikemen can kill easily. Arm 21 Gators is not one of them.
22
or 22 Gators. Yeah. It was not a fun day. I did significantly better with the Butcher.
Yeah.
Because he just needs you to kill about 3 or 4 Gators that are between you and the caster, and then he's good.
Yeah.
He'll just do it himself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
I think
blind, straight blind is a killer.
I also think that just that particular list in a good pilot's hand that knows what he's facing every time. It's one of those lists that'll just be strong all the time. Really, there's just a lot of boxes to eat and a lot of tough and a lot of everything else.
So, I could talk at length about, like, how SR 2017 impacts like single army type skews. Like when you're like, oh, I have a lot of infantry that are just high box and hard to remove. But the problem with that list is that it doesn't really deep dig in any meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't kill durable heavies very well.
Right.
And it doesn't project threat very far. So there's like a lot of counterplay to what it does.
Yep.
But it is a one hell of a skew. It is very good.
It's a good skew.
Yeah, it may only have one trick, but damn, is it good at that
well,
trick.
And I think that's what both of my games with Aubin, it's only been because of my arm skew that has helped. Like the only a Grimkin fully loaded arm is hard to
1321 on a Skinnamones.
Yeah. It's tough to just eat.
Make it go away.
Yeah, make it all go and kill 3 of them or 2 of them or whatever. All right, so moving on from that, of course, the Dracodile is in the wild. We've already mentioned it. Blind is
so good. And a 10-inch assault spraying blind.
Yeah, that's
digs real deep in places.
Really, it's the 4 initials, and like the 4 initials on the Dracodile is in the Animus together just means that you have a lot of play. Like it'll kill 2 heavies.
Yeah.
Like without a buff, it's fine.
Yeah. So other things I have as sort of big notes in the War Machine world. I think it was cool that Charles Sung came back. I haven't seen as much of Charles in the last year. He's been playing a little bit more Magic. I know he's been playing a lot of War Machine.
You mean Tom Wan?
You mean Tom Guan?
Sorry, Tom Guan. What the hell am I talking about? I had Charles in my head for some reason, but
because Charles won Captain Con.
But Charles won Captain Con. Yeah. So I'm confused.
I don't know why you're going on about Tom Guan. Tom Guan does seem to be getting back into some War Machine.
Sorry, Charles.
He went blonde and then
he was back into War
exactly
Machine. I think it was cool to see him back and playing, and then going back to Charles Sung, just won Captain Con, which was cool to see.
Yep.
What did he do it with?
What did Charles win Captain Con with?
Yes.
So I mean, he played Osram and Damiano, I think, right?
Right.
That was his pair. So he has a really cool Osram list right now. This is like it's predicated on the fact that direct fire is like not as good anymore. So He has, I think it's 3 Bashers, 3 Spray Bunnies, 2 Gun Bunnies, and 2 Drillers. Or is it 3 Drillers? I'm sure Charles is around somewhere. He can correct me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did go to Captain Con.
Yeah.
It's a really good list. He ended up playing Jake in the finals, and Charles's list kind of has all of the tools to kind of just auto hitting POW 12 blasts are real good against Rayas.
Yeah.
And then slamming wrong guy out of a zone because you slam really far and for free with bashers is really cool as well. And then there's a lot of really neat things he can do, a lot of really neat interactions between slams, auto hitting blasts, drillers just being fairly durable jacks, lots of sprays. And like hammer dwarves, the list ends up being very flexible, and like shield guards aren't a hard stop for it anymore. It's a really great list. I like it a lot.
I kind of like that one too.
Did you get yourself a pair of them JVM wings?
I did, in fact.
Oh, nice.
I did not see the clipping happen, but the next morning when I went in for Masters, I was like, "What is this pile of wings?" And then Jake came around and started handing them out to people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Told me the story. It was pretty funny.
All right, biggest piece of news, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is Kador CID dropped today. So we're gonna
hours ago.
We're gonna talk a little bit about #fake rules. They're gonna change tomorrow, but for now, there's a bit of
I think they'll give it a couple of days.
There's a bit of positive. There's a bit of negative. There's hey, you guys are gonna be the experts on G has been playing Kador pretty much nonstop, and you've been hoping for
Man of Wars, yeah.
Man of Wars, because you love.
Well, I love the models. I love the look. I love the idea of big, heavy-duty infantry, but they just weren't particularly good. They seem to have a problem getting there. Now, this is mostly groupthink because I have not actually put them on the table, and I wanted to put them on the table before the CID hit, and I missed it by about a week. I've got myself some shock troopers. I'm gonna throw together a Butcher 1 list and see what happens. But the CID landed, and the tankers that we saw at, what was it, Lock and Load, showed up, and they, I think, both visually and I think their rules are pretty darn good. They're what I'm totally enjoying. The rest of the actual like new models look okay. They're nothing great. I'm very interested to see how the chariots shake out. I find it weird that there's fast Man of Wars seems kind of weird. But I think something that's got more people up in arms is the point increases and decreases to current jacks.
Well, I think that's probably. I mean, I saw a hell of a lot of Mad Dog spam suddenly being posted.
So no, I mean, look. So let's just be straightforward about the CID. The tankers are really good. There's no question about them. They're quite good. They're not going to stay the way they are. Their rules are going to get cleaned up, and they're probably going to get toned down a little bit. They're insane. As far as points cost to jacks, if you did not see the changes to Marauders and Juggernauts coming, you were asleep.
Yeah.
There's in no world was a 10-point Marauder fine, and a 12-point Juggernaut that is not fine either. And you talk to any Kador player who competes at any reasonable level, has any idea about how model relative strength works, and they'll even not Kador players, other people, and they'll tell you those things are changing 100%.
Yeah.
I think the most meaningful change for me, at least, is the matte change to the Berserker chassis.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually really interesting. Going up to matte 6 base is great, and obviously a points cost that reflects that. I'm in. That sounds great to me.
Yeah, that means they might actually get taken.
Well, I think that if unstable still a really bad rule, just strictly bad. It's just awful, but it's core concept to them, right? So they're not gonna remove that, but maybe consider speed 5 on a Berserker. Who knows? Points cost reductions on Decimators, that's good too. Sure. There was a time at which Decimators were considered for a Vlad 1 list, and I guess at 15 points they're maybe worth considering again, especially when you're not looking at taking Marauders anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Spriggan still probably needs changes at 17 points. It's still probably not cheap enough or not good enough. Matt 6 is a real liability. Beast 09's fine at 18 points. That's super good. And like everything else is pretty lackluster. Like Mana War Demo Core just die on the way in still. Defensive line is like a dead rule. Defense 12 is not good enough. And like being Def 12 and base to base is like a trap. You just like you just die. You're like, oh great, now I lose 2 guys. That's great.
Well, and let's be honest though, Khador's been looked at in CID how many times now? Or are we on our
Once?
Is it once? So they've gone through a CID cycle. So really, these should be relatively lackluster. You know, it shouldn't be crazy because
this is the first
although
time...
there's only this is the first time that these models in particular are being looked at. The Khador got
the first time Khador's been in CID.
Oh, is it? Okay, well they got nerfed then before the CID cycles because there was the whole Mad Dog nerf that came out. Was that before
Correct.
CID?
That was before CID.
So Khador has been looked at. Khador had some balancing done. Maybe that's where I'm wrong. But let's hope that as CID cycles continue as we get into them, they're going to become more and more boring. Khador's in a relatively good place. There's some things that are a bit
little wonky,
but that's kind of, you know, for all the people that are complaining that this is the most boring CID cycle and like, I want what happened to somebody else happen to me. It's like, I'm kind of hoping that the game settles down a little bit and this is what we see going forward. Slight tweaks and balances that we're testing to make sure that the game is normal.
So, Matt, you said that the problem with most of the Mana Wars is that they never make it up the table. What would you do to change that?
Well, okay, so I actually talked with Bubba a fair bit about this when he came down to Montreal for the weekend, and we talked about Demo Core a bit, and what his big suggestion was Wall of Steel for them, and like that feels good to me. Like Armor 18 is 1018 is a lot better than 1216. And I know that in their talk about the CID, the Wills kind of said they didn't want them to be just shock troopers. But at 1018, they're really not just shock troopers. They have a completely different role, right? But that's like a whole different thing. What they really need is a delivery tool, or like the problem isn't getting down the table. The problem is just they get jammed out before they ever get to do anything meaningful. And like obviously the tanker is supposed to remedy that, so is the chariot. But as the chariot stands right now, it doesn't really do much and then just dies. And then like, yeah, that's I don't know. I obviously I have not played a game with it yet. The CID went live and I was playing some Merc games, but there's some things there. Like there's obviously some things that are going to change.
You don't think the vengeance is enough to get them unstuck?
Well, okay, so let's talk about the Vengeance for a second. You have one unit with a character attachment. It's now a 6 model unit. They're 1216 because they have defensive line. They have 8 boxes. They walk into any number of guns. You lose 3-4 of them. You Vengeance 3 guys up, and then like they charge. They maybe threat 11 because desperate pace. You kill not a heavy, and then the whole unit dies.
So you think they either need to hit hard enough that half a unit kills a heavy, or they need to be hard enough to kill that 4 or 5 of them make it out of this.
Correct. I think like that's the threshold. Demo Core is supposed to be like the thing that kills things and like kills colossals. So maybe like give them siege weapon on their hammers.
That would be an interesting change. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe like they're Demo Core. They're supposed to tear down buildings. It's in their name, Demolition Core, right? Like maybe they gain siege weapon, and like maybe shock troopers gain shield guard, and like you could use your shock troopers to escort guys down the table. Maybe that's a cool change. I don't know.
Straight up, I can't make any comments at all because all I do is see you play 19 jacks on the table, and I'm like, sweet, you'll be down one jack.
It was only 6.
Sounds fantastic. You're down a jack, I might be able to kill a couple more things.
It's not like that list I saw today that was like actually straight up 13 jacks, I think it was. What was it? Half
Mad Dogs and half Berserkers or
something like that?
Yeah, great.
It was just literally how many of them can you get?
Didn't somebody mention there was a way now to do with Karchev get 3 of the Colossals?
Colossals? Yeah. So at 35 points, you can fit 3 in. No problem.
Is that like... Is Pacific Rim a thing? Like, can it work?
Double Conquest, single Victor, I think is what the points work out like. It's a 32, 35s, and the 36, right? Like that's what the new points are. I think the Conquest is 35 and the Victor's 36. Like it's not a good list, but it's a list.
It's something you can do in War Machine.
Yeah, hey man, like look, if you're not aiming to like, okay, if you saw Tom's list at Captain Con, He played a list that was composed of druids and secret masters and a Woldrath, and his other list had a Craptor in it. I'm just saying you can win big things with bad lists.
Well, yeah, he did really well, right?
He won champions. He did remarkably well. He's a great player, and he played terrible lists.
That's why I was confused, because I knew Tom had won something with at Captain
Oh,
Con
and
as
you
well.
thought it was Masters.
You bastards screwed me up. Now I feel like a jerk. All right. Let's move on from the CID, because I think there's going to be, we're going to end up talking about this again next week.
When it changes, yeah.
When it changes. Well, and we'll have the guys doing it in the room. So that I think we can move on from there. Guys, there's going to be so much debate over the next 3 weeks.
Yep.
I just hate to dwell on it. What I really wanted to talk about tonight, and because we've got Matt on the show, and Matt, let's talk a bit about a life decision you made after SOO last year that has led you down a dark, dark, dark path that involves a lot of sweaty nerd bodies packed in rooms from weekend to weekend.
So
I
why
started
was
shooting porn. And,
I was gonna say
Nerd
why-
porn!
Oh, my bad.
I was gonna say why was coming on the show the worst choice you've ever made?
Because of Will. So you made a decision after SOO, and I mean, you and I have known each other for a few years, 2 years, basically
about 2 years. Yeah.
Basically, because we were the two heavy duty Merc players in the area, and you were a better Merc player than me, so I would go to you for advice. But you went did a 360 and decided to go for something. Tell us a bit about that deciding to go for the WTC and what you've done to get there.
So to preface the story, I'd been playing locally for a while, and I'd been like, okay, maybe I'm good enough to go to a convention. Maybe that's where I'm at, and eventually I'll be good enough to do something else. So I decided to go to a convention. I went to the Southern Ontario Open, and I played against 4 WTC players and did remarkably well in all my games. And afterwards I was like, okay, maybe I'm not actually retarded. Maybe I can play the game at a reasonable level, and my next goal should be to do something even better, do better at a convention, play more games, be better, progress as a player. And so I'm on the car ride back, the 7-hour car ride back from the Sioux. I was talking with my buddy Justin. I was talking about how I felt like there was a level to players. Most players are kind of at the midpoint. We're all kind of average. But by grinding games, getting more experience, playing against better players, experiencing more things in general, you kind of are able to go up above that, right? You go from that middle and you go a little bit up, and then you go through these giant breakpoints where you're because I've played this matchup 170 times, I'm pretty sure I just beat anyone I play at it as long as I'm not asleep at the wheel. And then you start thinking about that, and you start thinking about the game that way, where well, I don't need to have a good list in this matchup. I just have to be more comfortable here than my opponent. And then that whole progression becomes, well, if I want to win anything, I just need to play more. I need to try harder. And then naturally, as you try harder and you try to do better, your goals kind of change with that. And the goal became, well, I kind of want to go to the WTC. That's where all the best players are. I want to see how good I am. I want to see if I can do it. I wonder if I'm good enough to win games there. I wonder if I'm good enough to do something good. And then that becomes the goal, right? You set challenges for yourself the whole way. And eventually you hit those benchmarks. And then as you hit those benchmarks, you realize oh, wait, I'm actually just doing what I wanted to do. And now I have to pick something else to do. I have to, my first thing was to top 8 a convention. And then I did it. And I was like, what do I do now? Top 8 another convention? Sure. So you do that. And then you're win a convention? Okay. So you do that. And then you're go to the WTC, I guess. I guess that's the natural progression.
Right. I mean, I think we've all gone through this to a degree, because we are highly competitive players. So, and that is mainly because George forced me to be a highly competitive player. And of course, because it's funny, because when I go to a con, Matt's been there. What happens at inevitably at an Ottawa con, it goes like this: Will shows up to work. George goes, "We're short a player. Will, you have to play?" And I go, "God damn it, I don't want to play because I was planning on just playing fun games all day today." And no, Will, you got to play. And then I do well. So you go through that natural progression, and it started with going to Kings. It started to going with to a local match, and then it goes to going. Well, let's go to Kingston and see how we do. Let's go to the local con and see how we do. Let's go to the SOO and see how we do. That progression is absolutely normal for a competitive player, and I hope that all players rise to those challenges, because that's the only way you're going to get better at this game.
And I want to say,
no, it's not to say that having fun is a bad way
no. But what I want to say is that people should not be afraid of those ceilings. I think a lot of people, they come, 8th at their local tournament, and they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly go to like the Southern Ontario Open. I'm just going to get my ass handed to me. Well, maybe you are, but the experience of going to something like the Sioux and then...
Oh, yeah, you come back from the Sioux,
and you will be not only so much better than you were when you left, but you will have so much more experience. And when someone comes at you with this weird list that nobody local plays, you'll be able to go, oh, yeah, I saw that. And either I played against that or I watched that game. I know what those things do.
Yep.
And
hey, coming in last place at the Sioux is still going to be the best weekend of your life ever.
So,
oh my God, yes.
So go back to Matt. Sorry.
So there's a couple guys in chat. Hey, Andre, what's up? I mean, and like whoever won Padani is, I win local steamrollers. Like that's not an issue I have. I don't win them all. I lose a lot of games. I win some games.
Sometimes
it's
dice.
Not an issue. It's fine.
Wow, you're sounding really hyper compensated for that. Right? No, it's fine. I'm fine. I'm good all the time. Most of the time.
I know I'm terrible. Look, hold on. Time out, guys.
Just
like, don't anyone like misconstrue me. I'm terrible at the game. Like, I play games and I'm like, I'm not winning because this is like I'm out skilling my opponents. I'm winning because I'm like playing Kador. Like, there's my opponent's like, I put my models down and I'm like, okay, how many rockets does that take to kill? And like, well, how much skill do you really need to play rockets, right? Like, you just like kind of push your models up, roll some dice, and things die.
The words I'm hearing are Dick List, gentleman player.
But no, really, there's like in terms of progression as a player, there's a lot of things you can do to progress as a player, and I could talk at length about them. But one of my big things is I reached out to a few like really high level players. I reached out to like Tim Banky, Bubba Dalton. I talk to Charles really regularly now, and like getting input from a lot of people and getting perspective on the game from these people that have already been where I am and have gone past that point really gives you kind of like a roadmap to what you need to do. A really good example of this, not to segue like this whole thing, is the ATC. Mm-hmm. I went with Team Canada, Banky, Beauchamp, Charles, and Dustin. To the ATC, and like that was my first team tournament, like my first real team tournament, and it was a huge learning experience for me. And I came home from that with, I feel like just my understanding of how matchups works drastically changed. And I feel like that's what conventions do for you as a player, is you go through these different adventures. Like you go to the Southern Ontario Open and you're like, okay, like these players are really good and I'm able to win because I had an advantageous matchup. And then you go from that mindset to, how do I win a game where I'm super disadvantaged? And that becomes a standard mindset for you, because your lists aren't built to just like stomp people anymore. They're built to give you a reasonable chance in every game. They're built to make it so that as a player, your skill enables you to win games when you shouldn't be able to win those games. And then that progression eventually leads you to a point where you're no longer thinking about like what you do to win the game that turn. You're thinking about at the start of the game where all your models need to be to win the game by turn 6 or 7. And that's the progression you like, at least that I'm experiencing right now, is that I used to think, okay, what do I do this turn? Now I think 2 turns from now, where do my models need to be? Where is his models, like where is his stuff going to be? And how do I get my aiming bonus 2 turns from now? And that's the progression I'm experiencing. I'm not good, and I'm not trying to say I am, but like I'm seeing how players that are good get there. Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I think we've all got, I mean, I've definitely gone through that to a degree, just by having the chance to play better and better players does that to a degree as well. And I think going to a team tournament changes that it skews that to a whole different level. And all that type of stuff. Getting into the top 3 at a con changes that, because all of a sudden you no longer have the safety of the bad matchup. If that makes sense. If you're in a con where you've got 3 WTC players who are at that con to go get their ticket, which has happened, you can't rely on a bad matchup anymore.
Yeah.
Which changes it. You suddenly start to understand things. Matt, one of the things that you did that I thought was really interesting that I want to talk about tonight is the dedication you had to going to as many events as possible. What are your goal? Like, what were your goals, and how far along into that goal have you progressed?
So you can 100% blame Bubba for this. So I was like, I'm gonna go to like 1 or 2 local cons, like maybe travel like 6-7 hours. I'll go to a con, that's fine. And then Bubba was like, listen, you're gonna go to War Machine Weekend. And I was like, but I don't know anything about War Machine Weekend. He's like, you're going, shut up, get on a plane, you're coming to War Machine Weekend. And then for 3 months, I practiced 7-minute time turns. I tried my best. I practiced. I played like, this is going to be great. I figured out all the matchups, did a lot of meta research. And then I got there and they're like, it's Deathclock, by the way. So all that time turn practice.
Hey, it taught you to play turns faster, I'm sure.
And that whole weekend I hung out with Team Canada. And it was a really great experience. And I felt like this is where I want to be as a player. I don't want to be the player who shows up to a local steamroller and, is the X-1 or the 4-0 or whatever. Like, that's not interesting to me. What's interesting to me is when you go to a convention and you're like, these are the best, like, this is the best sample size of players. These are people from different metas, different skill levels. Some are great, some are bad. And you go there and you play very meaningful games that are not only enjoyable, but like challenging in ways that like local games just simply aren't, right? Like, these people have played completely different games than you do. And you meet really cool people. And after all of that, I said, these conventions aren't that expensive to go to if you have people to travel with and all that stuff. And I was like, I could probably do like 6 or 7 a year. And then they're like, Then Bubba was like, are you going to apply for WTC? And I was like, if I apply for WTC, I probably need to go to more than just 6 or 7 cons. So I probably need to do like 10 cons. I need to make sure that I'm like the best possible player I can be. Because going to cons is a practicing ground like nothing else. It's also a proving ground. But so I made the decision. I said, you know what? If I'm going to go to WTC, I'm going to take this that seriously. I'm going to invest the money and time. I'm going to invest the money and time, period. There's no point half-assing it. Like, if you're going to try to do the best you can, you go full into it. You just lean into it as hard as you can. So 10 more cons this year. Doing 1 a month.
There you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That I don't know how to put it any other way, but if that is your goal, and I'm not saying that's everybody's goal.
Heck no.
Let's put that down. My goal
it's basically 15 people in all of Canada's goal.
Yeah, well, it's a lot more than 15, but yeah, I mean, by the amount of applications that went into the WTC this year, a lot of people have that goal. But if that is your goal, I don't think there's a better way to do it. I don't think so. And we've talked to Tim about that too. There is the, practice your turns, practice your first turn, practice your second turn, practice your unboxing. There's all that stuff that can help you as well. Play a million games at your local store, just resetting whenever something goes wrong, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't really think that there's a challenge quite as high, Matt. Am I speaking up my ass here, Matt?
So one of the best things that I've experienced, I have a couple local meta guys here in the chat. Look, I'll just preface this by saying this: no player is perfect. Everyone mistakes. Everyone can win or lose any game.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the best Kador player in the world, show up to a Montreal store, and lose a game to a random Kruger 2 player. Like, that'll happen. Like that happens.
I feel like that happened recently. I've just
it's a thing that happens to some people, and it happens to everyone. And like, it's you don't play every game the same. But the big takeaway here is, the most important thing in War Machine is to obviously enjoy yourself. Do what you enjoy. If you want to be a competitive player but you hate playing competitive games, then don't do it. Like, let's just be straightforward. You're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to have fun. You're going to be bad for the community. But if you're the type of player that's like, I want to get better, I want to progress, I want to do what I can to make it, and like my goal is X, and I want to take the steps towards it. The most important thing in almost every regard is to make every game you play meaningful. Whether that means like you tell your opponent, hey, look, if you put your caster there, you're gonna fucking die. Or it means like you telling your opponent that, hey, if you put Iris here, I can't kill her, and next turn you get to shoot my caster and I die. That's a valuable learning experience for you as a player. That means that next time you play someone who has Iris and they go to put her there, you're gonna be like, I have to make sure my caster doesn't die to that. That's the most important thing about like War Machine in general. Make your games meaningful, make the experiences fun, and don't just shit the bed.
Well, it sounds like some part of that meaningfulness, when you're learning anyway, is to help your opponent learn some of the things that they can do that they may have missed as well, by that example that you just gave.
Yeah. So someone posted in the chat asking like how I would improve with my teammates not being in the same meta as me, because 4 of my teammates are in Toronto, and I'm the only one in Montreal. Well, to preface a couple things, I actually we have a group chat. We talk about matchups and a lot of things there, but the big thing about improving is that you don't have to be in the same meta as your team. You have to be in a meta where people are willing to spend time with you to help you practice the things, and you're willing to spend time with them to help them practice. No one gets good on accident, except for Bubba, apparently. No one gets good on accident. It's a constant effort of pushing and having people help you, leaning on those around you. Like we have a couple really good players in my meta, and it took a lot of practice for me to get to the point where I can beat them, or I can have even games against some of them.
There's about to be a couple of really angry Montrealers right there. What? Is he a son of a bitch?
Yeah, that was a misspeak. I meant to say even games where we get to have really tight and like complex games where before I would just get like my shit like directly pushed in, and now that's how it goes. Kind of like you put the effort in, and people around you put the effort in, and you grow together, and that's what makes community games so fun.
I just want to say, between all this, I'm drinking Jason's beer, and it's delicious. Jason left beer here is like the greatest thing ever.
Yes.
Okay, so you've gone to a lot of cons. You've had a lot of meaningful games. I like the idea of using... so one of the things... Marc-Andre LeBlanc spent a lot of time on the cast, those of you that have listened for the last couple of years. And one of the things that I always found interesting is when he moved to Ottawa, the first initial reaction was like, shit! MA's back, and he's just going to steal all the prize support. The second reaction was, no, the best part about Marc-Andre being back is that it raises the bar on the whole meta.
Yes,
like, literally, we all get better because we all get to play better games, if that makes sense. And not to say that there weren't already good players in Ottawa, but the bar was definitely in a different spot before he came home, if that made sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really great piece of advice, Matt. We can all raise each other to if competitive players playing together to become better competitive players can raise the bar for everybody across the board. Anyway,
yeah,
it's I'm not gonna harp on that.
It is something that not a lot of people understand is that you tend to not learn anything from winning a game. You tend to learn significantly more by either. Not usually by getting your shit pushed in, but by seeing someone else use the tools correctly. And you're like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do. That's how that type of model is used, or that's how that style of play is supposed to go.
I think that to kind of talk about that lesson, I took my pairing for Captain Con was Old Witch 2 Karchev. And I took them into the standard issue, and I got placed in a pod with Marc-Andre, Dustin McWhirter, and a couple other like really like great players. And we were like, Marc-Andre and I we drove to Captain Con together, and we're like, oh god, we're in the same pod. This is terrible. Anyways, so I was doing pretty good. I dropped so I lost a game in that pod to Kruger 2, which is pretty awkward. If you're familiar with like the matchup of that, like basically there's a point where Kruger 2 just can't kill 8 heavies, and that's like the start of the game. So I lost that game, and I got assassinated on the top of 2 with Karchev.
What?
And we did the math on it, and with what he killed me with, it was a 0.57% assassination run. But after everything else, it was a 35% assassination run. And the lesson I took away from this game was like, just make it a 0. Like 35% isn't reliable, but that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So make it a 0. And those are the lessons you learn from losing games. Like if I win that game and like I survive that assassination run, it's on me as a player to be like, okay, I just have to make that a 0 next time. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
Well, no, I think it's like that. You learned a lesson this week. Sometimes Butcher doesn't just win the game.
Yes.
I mean, Butcher dies all the time. The time.
But that was the thing. Like you were you were so confident in your winning of the game that I was ready to just say, "Do you want to reset so we could play a different game?"
Yeah. Well, you were a little tilting. At
Well,
that point.
but a lot of it had to do with that I didn't want to waste another 20 minutes watching you just
push your shit in. Yeah.
Just push my shit in when we could have reset.
And
we
I
had time to reset.
And I said, no, dice happen.
Well, and it wasn't even dice in the
Yeah.
end. It just happened that there was just enough fury out on the board.
I could only kill, what, 6 of your
Yeah, you
7
could only
beasts?
kill 5 of my 7 monstrosities, and then you left. Or
Well,
not
there was only one
monstrosity
left.
beasts. Yeah, there was
That's
one left.
skin and bones.
But I only had 6. Anyway, long story short, yeah, lesson learned. Matt, before we get lost, we got 5 more minutes for this topic. What I want to talk about is you've gone to a lot of cons. Let's talk about some of the best and the best experiences and maybe some lessons learned for con organizers, because we happen to have one in the room. Best and worst experiences. Let's talk about your best to start with.
My best? Oh, that's kind of hard. It's kind of like it's a mangled thing. War Machine Weekend was probably my best experience. The LCQ was a great experience, and the level of competitiveness of cons in general is just great. That's what I enjoy the most. Also, like just talking with players who know their faction better than anyone else is phenomenal. Honestly, Sue is a great show. I had a really good time there. First time I went. CCBB was great. I don't know. I think my best experience was War Machine Weekend, and that's just because it is, I think, the best show, right? Like, I don't Lock and Load and War Machine Weekend.
What really sets? So you've gone to a few cons now. What is set? So what does set a con apart? Is there like a game style or a room style or the amenities? What sets a con apart for you?
That's kind of hard to put into words, but the atmosphere at the con. Like when you go to a big con where there's like 200 plus people and everyone's like vying for that spot, there's this competitive, like you can feel it in the air. Everyone wants to win. Everyone's trying their best. If you feel like if at any second you take a break and you relax and like you just lose, that is what makes cons great for me. That competitive air.
That's awesome.
Also, always having events going on is just great.
Yeah.
No downtime if you don't want it.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of them. Like, I don't want to get into like, yeah, that was the worst con ever. But like, what is the negative experience? What are the takeaways or advice you have to make
Which
your
one was the
experience
worst?
better?
And tell us why it was CCBB.
Captain Con.
What made that negative for you?
It was a disorganized shit. Like, oh my god. All right, look. There was some drama that happened there. I got kind of like called down to play in Masters at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then got told like after I had already turned in my lists and filled everything out that I was not in the Masters.
That seems odd. Why? Was it just they had miscounted their people, or
there was a ton of registration problems. Like they just didn't populate the registration lists. I don't know what the deal was there, but like I registered for multiple events and my name wasn't on anything. And this was a common motif throughout the weekend. The terrain was absolutely horrid. But besides that, it was a great con.
So I guess the lesson there, of course, George, you spend like 95% of your time with a team of 8 making sure that shit like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But the lesson there is like that
organization will set you free.
And that initial experience can make or break a con.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you make up for it.
Aggie was the organizer, like one of the organizers there, and Aggie's con mom. She's great. But at multiple times during that con, she had to like come over to me and apologize for things that had happened that were beyond the organizer's control. And like that leaves me as a player, as someone who like paid money to be there and traveled, feeling really bad. You should never, like Dan Riker and I got called down for Masters at 8:00 in the morning, turned in our lists, and then they're like, oh, by the way, you're actually not in the Masters. So I know that you guys had planned to do things today, and like we woke you up out of your beds to be here, but get fucked, I guess.
Yeah, that is bad organization is, I think, the death knell of any sized convention like that. You want to sort of George's little philosophy here. The convention should be transparent to the playing of games. So your total interaction with the convention part of the convention would be, oh yeah, here's my 2 lists, thanks guys, and then hearing your name called and what table you're on. There shouldn't be any time that people have to go, oh, did you get this? Did you do that?
Yep.
Are you in the right place? Are you
Really?
in the wrong
Because my
place?
convention experience is just getting yelled at by you.
Yes, and that's how I make sure that happens.
Oh.
So look, I don't want to shit on Captain Con too hard. It is a pretty good show. I had a really good time there over the weekend. Like, it was a remarkably enjoyable experience. But that organization, like that lack of organization, was the worst part of any con I've been to.
Well, but I think this is a lesson learned, and hopefully, I mean, the guys from Capticon, we've talked to them.
Yeah,
we've met
guys,
them.
yeah.
We were planning on being there this year.
Yeah, we were really hoping to.
Things didn't work out. But I think that, feedback is valuable, even if it comes from a bunch of shit talking podcasters.
Yep.
And that's stuff that people need to know. I know that I've heard other things that really narrowed down to organization. I've heard other cons criticized for organization, and that can make or break a con. Now, to preface this, when Jason and I organize a con, organization comes second, fun comes first. Well, wait, no.
Fun, beer comes first.
Beer, fun,
then organization.
Dancing
then War Machine.
No, dancing girls.
No, War Machine's on the list? Shit.
Wait, hold on. Beer, fun, War Machine, dancing girls, organization.
Oh, my God.
So, time out. I just want to touch on this for a second. Look, Capticon has a list of what the problems were this year. I've talked to Aggie about it, and I talked to Nate about it. They have a list of the problems. The problems were terrain, analog clocks, and organization. They are fixing them. That is their goal.
Then that's what makes a great con next year.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're gonna leave that behind because I hate to be negative like that, but it's always good to know what the negative experiences are, so you can be prepared for them. And the reason I say that is not so that you can go and bitch. It's so that sometimes shit goes wrong. And if you already know that sometimes shit goes wrong, it doesn't bother you as much.
Yeah, because you're ready for it.
All right. And analog clocks, that's actually a big deal. We've talked about this a bit.
We had that problem.
We had a couple of cons with some analog clocks and people getting very angry at losses.
People don't seem to understand analog clocks, and I completely understand when time gets low. They are so bad.
Analog clocks are not acceptable for competitive play.
Yeah, that little waiting for the thing to drop is and bang. So I once had a really good friend of mine, a way far superior player to me, lose a game because he banged the table and the
thing dropped.
Oh
no!
And I mean, in all honesty, I looked at the clock and I'm like, I am so sorry. And it was like, well, what are you going to do? That's
if I know Will, what he actually did is did finger guns and said, "Get fucked."
No, I would never do that. You got to remember, I'm usually half cut by that time, so I don't really remember what happened.
He would never do that on the stream when anybody could see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's coming down to the last few minutes of the show, so you guys know what time it is. Jason's not here to win it because apparently he's now the king of trivia, which is hilarious.
Yep.
George, you used to be good at this game.
I'm not good at this.
No, not anymore. All right, Matt, you know how this works. You got to buzz in.
Do I press the button?
Oh, yeah. Go hit the button. I forgot we had buttons.
The lightning round.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, the 10 toughest questions in all of Warma Hordes. Well,
So you've got your war room up on the iPad just out of camera frame, right, Matt?
yeah, because
I'm actually holding it right here.
Because the reality is I'm going to get half of these stats wrong, and you'll be like, oh, God, that's totally wrong. Good news, ladies and gentlemen. Minty's back.
Did we get a Minty Fresh
We have
question?
a Minty Fresh question of the week.
Yay, we'll both be able to lose on that one.
Oh, and it's horrible.
Is it?
It's terrible. So, Matt, you know how it works. Because there's a bit of delay on Skype, I also say raise your hand when you buzz in, because sometimes George just buzzes louder, and I don't notice that you buzzed in. All right, so what is Kane 3's rat? It was George.
9?
It is 9. Good job. Hey, that's the one that you get.
Yay, I got one. I'm good.
Question number 2. What is the mat on a cask imp? Matt.
0?
No, it is 3. It
3?
is 3.
I was surprised they had a mat.
I was
Yeah,
too.
me too.
That's why the question's here.
They don't have a melee weapon, do they?
I don't know, but they have a mat.
Okay.
We'll look it up later, and then you'll all tell me that you'll be like, "Well, it's 3. Their movements are 0. Their movements 3." I'm like, I misread it. Question number 3: what is the POW on a Storm Raptor's Lightning?
Oh.
George.
10.
No. Matt.
I'm gonna go ahead and go with 14.
It is 14.
Ooh.
Matt's up 2. Question number 4: what is the name of the Glacier King's Animus? Matt.
Frozen Ground.
It is Frozen Ground. Question number 5: what does the power Territorial do? Matt.
Free charges against large or huge base models.
Correct, sir.
That's the Dracodile one.
That's the Dracodile one.
Yeah.
Question number 6: what is Cross 2's gun's name? Matt.
Soul Kiss.
I believe it's Soul Reaver. Soul Reaver.
Oh, it was Gypsy Kiss got changed to Soul
It's
Reaver.
got
My bad.
Soul Reaver. I'm half the time I'm wrong on this, so if you say it with confidence,
No, it was Gypsy Kiss for all of Mark II, but apparently that's offensive, so now it's Soul Reaver.
I'll give you half. I'll give you half a point.
I was like, you were literally looking at that card like an hour ago.
Question
Who
number
looks at cards?
Question number 7: I'm a Dragoon Doom Reaver. Who am I? Matt.
Fenris.
It is Fenris.
Yep.
Question number 8: how far can a Hellmouth deploy from the deployment zone? Matt.
12 inches.
Correctamundo. Matt's kicking your ass. So
Oh,
just
yeah.
wanna throw that
I
out
expected
there.
that.
Do you feel shame? Or-
No.
No? All right, fair. Question number 9: what are the names of the Legends of Halak?
Oh,
There are 3 of them. What are their names?
I'm gonna go with Swordy 1, Macy 1, and Pikey 1.
That's pretty good.
I'm gonna go with Larry, Moe, and Curly.
I'm going to take away 10 points from both of you. It's Valgesh, Sidair, and Jadeth.
Really?
Valgesh, Sidair,
Okay, Matt,
and
does
Jadeth.
it ever throw you when someone actually names the models in the character unit when they move them forward? They're like, okay, I'm going to
gonna
move
move
so-and-so to
Sidair.
here, and so-and-so to... And that always throws me. I'm like, what
Well,
unit
it's
is
fine
that?
with Mercs because they've got cool names, a lot of them, and you like so the what are they called, the ghost ship dudes,
Devil Shadow.
the Devil Shadows. I always remember their names because they've got cool names.
Well, somebody was doing that to me playing Crix, and it was the three man
Wither Shadow Combine.
Yeah, the Wither Shadow, but they never called them the Wither Shadow Combine. They would call them by their names.
Oh,
so and so
sexy.
moves to here. So and I was like, I think I've seen those models before, but I don't think I've ever heard them called those.
All right. We got the Minty Fresh question of the week. Before we get lost on a diatribe, Minty Fresh question of the week is: what is the name and rank of Sorsha's father?
I'm gonna say. Okay, I'll buzz in.
Go.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it is General Krakatov.
Oh no.
I have no idea.
Matt has no idea. It is Corporal Luka Krakatov.
He only made corporal.
He only made corporal.
Wow.
So-
I kind of assumed because Sorsha was so high in the military now, like she's a forward commander.
Yeah.
That
Well,
you would think that
she was,
her dad was
the daughter
higher
of a
up on
lowly
it.
corporal. It's the hero story of, it's the
Does it
the
get-
Russian
Well,
hero
she-
story.
Does it get really awkward at dinner
Her-
where she can
her
order
lit-
him around?
Her lineage is actually like really important to her story because she's not a noble, right?
That's right.
So she's like sitting there with like a big heart on for Vlad's nobility. It's kind of an issue.
All right, George, we're at 9:00. I am giving you 3 minutes. I'm going to time you. You have 3 minutes to talk about what you got coming up. 'Cause you got something pretty cool coming up.
So on the 17th, is that what you're talking about?
All right,
Oh, okay. Well, we'll start off with next out of the box in our tournament series is on the 17th. Come on out, play some games. If you come in first, you're almost certain to secure yourself a spot in the finals, where we're going to be giving away a lot of fabulous prizes.
Fabulous prizes.
Yeah, really good ones. If you are local, if you go to the Out of Box nights, please remember to report your games. There's a form on our Facebook page. Just go fill it out, and I get the data and I stack it all in a giant pile. And someday I'll do something with it. Mostly, I just total up the points. But the big thing that Will is alluding to is that I am in the middle of putting together a convention for October. We're currently looking at the 19th to the 21st weekend. It is going to be called Armatura. You can already go to armaturacon.com. And it is going to be a multi-system convention. We're going to have War Machine Weekend Invitational. We're going to have a Iron Gauntlet qualifier. Champions on the second day. There's going to be lots of Iron Arena. For War Machine, we have Jessica Rich. If you're a painter,
I've already booked my spot. One spot is mine.
One spot
no
is
matter
yours.
what the fuck happens, I get a spot on that one.
Jessica Rich has some amazing painting courses coming up. We're going to be flying her in to do those. There is going to be an amazing painting contest that is shaping up to have some of the best painters in the world submitting models, which is just freaking amazing.
So Ben and I, that's just
No, I said
and
good
Aggie,
painters.
and Aggie, Ben and I are
I
both.
said good painters.
We're all three going to be there.
No, I think Yom's putting in. Yeah, good painters.
That scrub.
Yeah, the 3 award-winning painter Yom de Machen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yom's ridiculous.
We're also, if you are, I don't know, if you are a multi-system guy and you're still listening to our strange little podcast, we are currently lining up Batman, X-Wing, Infinity, Guild Ball, and 40K to also happen.
All right. You got 1 more minute.
We're sponsored by BCP, Best Coast Pairings, and Conflict Chamber, who are helping us write some custom software for the convention so that we will be able to have everything run smoothly. We're going to be arming everybody's badges that day with RFID tag, so you won't have to worry about carrying anything else around.
Beep. There you go. Time's up. Good
Time's
job.
up.
Armatura.
Okay.
Check it out. A couple other announcements we have quick. This was the 99th episode.
Yep.
Maelstrom just sent it out. The happy 99th, dorks. I'm sorry that he couldn't be here for the 99th. It was kind of sad that he couldn't make it. But hey, he's got kids. That's the way it works. Next week is our 100th episode.
Mm-hmm.
Important things about the 100th episode. We're going to have the PP Wills here. They're going to be giving us a little bit.
I believe we have
Crucible.
Pagani and Oz that are going to be on.
Crucible guys.
And maybe get some yummy Crucible Guard spoilies.
So please tune in next week. That is our 100th episode. That was our goal when we first started. We were like, if we get to 100 episodes.
Oh, something important if you're listening to this. The 100th episode will be on Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday.
Right.
Wednesday night is Valentine's Day. You should have something better to do if you're in any kind of relationship.
I need to remind my wife that I'm podcasting Tuesday and that she has to spend time with me on Wednesday. That's going to be bad.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to spend time with you either.
Other things that we need you to know about MooseCon is go, but we're just working out on some dates because we're going to put it in the summertime this year, and it's going to be for those who would be interested in something like this, it is going to be a camping convention. We're going to have a much bigger hall, and we're going to have beer that will flow 24/7, as well as you can camp where we're going to have our con. It's going to be a totally different thing.
The actual War Machine will be indoors.
Indoors, and the beer will be indoors, and there'll be pie. Just going to throw all that out there.
Old lady pie.
We're
hoping to get old lady pie.
Oh dear God! So those are things that are coming up. There's a lot more announcements. This whole ride has been crazy. Thanks everybody for being around for 99. Because we won't really be able to talk much about that on the 100th because we're going to be gushing over having Privateer Press staffers here.
Mm-hmm. But be aware that 100 might go a little late.
Yeah, probably. Matt, thanks so much for joining us for the 99, bro.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I always enjoy doing things and
stuff.
You guys and stuff, yeah. Yeah.
So
thanks for having me on.
So we're going to talk. Matt and I will talk briefly after the podcast. George will probably just put it in the edit. We're going to need to talk that Gaston list because we didn't get around to it.
Oh yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us for tonight. I want you to please, if you need miniatures and you are in just the general area of the world, check out of the Box. Also, if you're into sports cards and memorabilia, that is your place to go.
Oh my God, they do so much breaking there.
Oh my God, they are amazing. If you're into that thing. Last but not least, please remember that we are proud members of the Muse on Minis community. If you need tokens or sticks or any of those kinds of things, go to Muse on Minis. They are epically awesome. Mm-hmm. Shout out to our buddy John, who is the bestest in the universe. Last but not least, if you drink beer, you're in the Ottawa area and you want beer made by gamers for gamers, come visit me at Crooked Mile. That's it for tonight, everybody. George, hit that button.
Dice down.
Moose Machine and This Deathclock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.